Welcome friends, welcome back to the kitchen, welcome back to Sunday morning in the old cookbook show. Today we're going to do a recipe out of this book called Good Cooking with Yeast by Ambrose Heath. A viewer, thank you very much, sent in a bunch of Ambrose Heath's cookbooks. Very prolific UK cookbook writer. Most of his books follow the same sort of format, a very tiny tome, and something about good. So good breakfasts, good cheese dishes, good cold dishes. This one's Good Cooking with Yeast. And I've spent a couple of weeks reading through it, and I really like what he's done here. At the beginning, in the foreword, he talks about don't be afraid of yeast. Don't be afraid of making yeasted breads. Don't be afraid of making yeasted doughs. It's not that hard. Yes, there's rules, but you can ignore most of the rules and learn them as you go along. You don't need to learn them all right at the beginning. And I think this was published in the 1940s, and I think that the information or the sentiment is even more important today in 2025 because we are faced with social media. We are faced with YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and that other one that I absolutely despise, Pinterest. Is Pinterest still around? I don't know. Where you are constantly, if you want to bake something, bombarded with perfect loaves of bread, with that perfect ear that, peeks up, and patterns drawn on the top of a loaf of bread. All things that make the bread look beautiful, but don't actually mean that it's going to taste any better. All things that you can do with a loaf of bread if you do it every day, day in and day out. But most of us aren't going to do that. Most of us are only going to bake a loaf of bread maybe once, twice a month, if that. Some people maybe only once a year. And you're not going to be perfect. And what this book says to you is you don't have to be. You don't have to follow the perfect pattern in order to knead bread. So what I've got here first is barley malt. So this is barley malt, and this is tepid water. I'm going to put the water in with the barley malt. We'll give that a stir. We're making a malted brown bread, by the way, and I've taken the recipe, I've cut it in a third because I didn't need that much bread. And that's another problem with a lot of older recipes is they are meant for big families. You're baking this every day and you're going to go through 3 loaves of bread very quickly. Most of us aren't going to go through that much bread very quickly, so I've cut it down by a third. Barley malt. You can get it on the internet. You might be able to find it in your local grocery store. You can get it at a homebrew store, and those are fading quickly, unfortunately. So I've got that mixed in. I've now got dry yeast. We're going to mix the dry yeast in with the water and the barley. One thing I will say about Ambrose Heath is I don't like the way he writes these recipes. He writes them all in a paragraph. You have to read through the paragraph and pick out all of the ingredients. And I've picked them out and I've written them on a piece of paper beside. And then you have to make sure that you don't miss any ingredients. So there's no ingredient list and then a method. It's a paragraph, a story about making the recipe. And it can be a little bit confusing. You have to read them 2 or 3 times. That is my only complaint with the way Ambrose Heath writes his recipe books. Okay, so I've got some whole wheat flour. You're going to make a well in the center, which just means, push the flour out to the side. And then we're going to pour in our water mixture with the yeast. And then just with the spoon, we're going to mix in about a third of the flour into the water. Just like that. And that's it. Smells wonderful. Smells like brewing beer. I brew beer. Have you checked out our beer brewing channel? I haven't posted in a while. Here's the deal. It is the end of July. I've had a very busy summer. I've been flying a lot. I've been training with flight training to get a higher license. and I just haven't had time to shoot. I've got a couple of weeks now where I'm shooting some stuff so that I can build up enough content so that I can finish getting the higher license. If you want to learn how to brew beer, check out our beer brewing channel. And even on this channel, there's some beer brewing videos going back. This smells like the brew house when you're making beer. So there it is. Now we cover this and leave it for 2 hours. 2 hours have gone by and we've got some pretty good bubbling happening here at this point. So there's a whole bunch of names for what's happening here or what this is called or how this is. It's really not important. What you need to know is that this is going to make a great loaf of bread. At this point, we're supposed to add the salt and mix in the rest of the flour. And we've got a really great sponge that we've built up here in the middle. So we've got a pretty sticky dough going here. Doesn't mention shaping the dough other than get it out on the board and then get it into a greased bread pan. Turn the mixture onto the board, divide into convenient sized loaves. So you're mostly putting it on the board in order to divide it. It's pretty sticky. It's not going to be easy to shape. And since there's no mention of shaping in the recipe, I'm not going to worry about it too much, but I am going to try and shape it a little bit before I put it into the loaf pan. And I'm not really going to go through much of the conventional shaping because you're not going to. This is just, it's sticky, it's stuck to the bench. I could shape it. I do have the technical skill to shape it, even though it's a sticky dough, and I could go through it all. But because he doesn't say anything about shaping, he just says divide and put into a greased bread pan, I'm just going to take that and say that's 1 bread pan's worth of dough. And we're going to get it in there. We're going to cover it and let it go for an hour. Okay, I can tell from over here, it looks like we've got a good rise. And it has risen nicely. So, bake them in a moderate oven from 3/4 of an hour to an hour. So, the oven is set to 350. We'll stick this in 45 minutes and see what happens. But I have my trusty temperature probe. This should be done at about 190 degrees Fahrenheit internal temperature.
Hey, Glen.
Hey, Jules.
Hey, friends.
I give you malted brown bread.
Ooh, malted. That sounds good. That's the best part.
It looks like it's got a really good crumb. Like it's... Okay, so there's no kneading involved. It's got a nice crust. Mm-hmm. It's got a nice texture.
It's very light malted too, versus that malted bread that it's really hard to get hold of.
Yeah.
And cost a fortune.
I love that stuff.
But I do love that.
So dark.
With peanut
dark,
butter?
Dark, dark.
But I like this.
Okay. Good crumb, good crust, good flavor. Not a beautiful loaf by any stretch of the imagination because there's no shaping. There was no kneading. It's funny because it says here just to put it into the tin, and it was a really wet dough.
Okay, so hard to get into the tin.
Hard
Hence this.
And hard. It would have. I could have shaped it, but it would have taken a lot. And I think for most people who are using this as a beginner book, just get it in the pan. It's going to be fine. You got a really good loaf of bread out of that. It doesn't look beautiful, but you know, it tastes good.
Yeah, it's not the soft squishy of like a white bread, but
No.
it's also not dense like a soda bread. It's kind of a lovely.
Okay, so fairly easy to make.
We like that.
Yeah. You could maybe double up. You could double up on the malt to bring out a little bit more of that malty flavor. Definitely. You don't have to knead a bread to make a great bread. You don't have to leave your no-knead bread in the fridge overnight to make a no-knead bread. You saw what I did. This is pretty easy, pretty quick. There's another one in here that I want to do that's going to be even quicker.
What? Are you saying that no-knead bread isn't brand new? Insert rant here.
No, not at all. No-knead bread is the original bread. That's where it started.
Yeah.
That's where it started. Like Neanderthals making bread. They weren't kneading. Anyway, that's for another time. I want to do this one from 1944. Unkneaded bread. In this book, he says over and over and over again, when you're using wholemeal or whole wheat flour, you get a better loaf and a better texture if you don't knead. Make it wet, make it sloppy. Don't knead it.
All right.
There's your proof. Okay, so come back maybe 5-6 weeks from now, and we'll do this other bread from 1944. Thanks for stopping by. See you again soon.